Is this vintage reproduction pattern actually the same as this authentically vintage pattern from the 1950s? That's what we're about to find out. And today's video is sponsored by Surfshark, but more on them in a little bit. Because while in the past, Simplicity has acknowledged that they took a vintage pattern line drawing and used a modern body block to recreate it, these new authentic patterns supposedly are done directly from the original pattern. Now I will say there is a little sneak peek of some frustration from someone that is not me as to why this video is happening.
Okay, first of all, I know better, but this neckline had me, and I couldn't find the original in my size at an affordable price, and I really, really wanted to sew it. So I figured for $1, why not take the chances and I can fix whatever the hell is wrong? Because it can't be that bad, right? So we get to the first part. This is supposed to be like a fisheye dart right here, right? But they don't put that on the pattern, you see? So basically you're supposed to fold this like a tuck and then sew along this dotted line. So you have to draw the dotted line on the fabric. Well, when you do a tuck, what happens? You get these little tucky tuck things because it doesn't taper off and it looks like.
So let's go ahead and take a look at these patterns. First, discussing the envelope differences. Shockingly, there aren't too many. Mainly what we see here is a lovely change in that where they are putting this pattern number onto the actual envelope, instead of making me hunt it down through the Vintage Pattern Wiki and lots of friends. The backs are the standard changes, where the modern one puts it into English and Spanish, and the original vintage is only in English, but it does include the line drawings. And now, we open it up to a glorious vintage factory folded pattern that I'm actually gonna have to undo to do this video. The things I do for YouTube. And now let's take a look at the instructions, where they literally just copy-pasted. That's what they did, except they rearranged things on the modern one. Authentic vintage pattern reproduction.
Sure, Jan.
Okay, we'll see. I will say overall they did a pretty good job, because while the newer one actually is on white paper and it's a little bit smaller, they didn't squish the font too much, so you can still read everything just the way you can on the vintage one. And the only changes it looks like they actually made is including that little authentic label. Everything else looks the exact same. On to the back then. Yeah, just literal copy paste. So if you understand vintage instructions, these are going to really help you when you buy the reproduction pattern, as opposed to hunting down this quite rare original pattern. But the modern ones not only include the copy of the original, it also includes an updated layout, some general directions, and all the pattern pieces that they didn't put on the back of the envelope. I do appreciate that they included a 60-inch layout on this particular part of the diagram to accommodate modern fabrics. And this one is totally empty on the back, so enough of the instructions. Let's go to what you're really here for, the pattern pieces. Okay, now I gotta go iron everything. And let's go ahead and start with the bodice pieces. Letter A, and as a reminder, we have a vintage size 14, and we are looking at a modern size 12 because the only difference is a ½ inch more in the modern waistband. So we want the size 12 lines on this here modern pattern. If I am finding the center line right here, we are already having issues. So my pattern, and yes, now I can only find one pattern weight, so ain't it grand. What line even is that? And when life gets a little too frustrating, like on some of these pattern pieces, I prefer to go and sit and relax a little. And when I want to relax, sometimes I just want to watch my favorite shows. But sometimes those shows aren't available because I'm in the US. That's where the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark, comes in clutch. Surfshark is a virtual private network, which allows me not only the security to know that when I am on the go, I can keep all my information secure and private by plopping myself in a completely different place when I hunt for good deals on vintage, or just want to watch something else that isn't in my home country. And when I'm in the mood to watch my favorite show ever, Friends, yes, I know, I'm basic, it's fine. What happens when I go to American Netflix? It's not there. So I pop Surfshark on and head over to G'day mate, happy Australia. Because in Australia, Netflix, they have all of my favorite Friends episodes so that I too can pivot into a happier headspace before heading back to finish my sewing projects. Or in this case, pattern projects. So if you want to help support this channel and secure your privacy and be able to travel at the click of a button, make sure you click the link down in my description bar to check out Surfshark, where you can enter the coupon code StephanieCanada for 4 extra free months along with your paid subscription. Secure your privacy today, and thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. And never fear, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Now back to the pattern. Am I just crooked or is this the pattern? So listen, I'm going on the fold line here, and it's close, but it's not actually lining up. This is the 12 line right there, which is what I should be lining up with. It goes almost to the 14, all the way. So here's the fold line. This is the 14 right there. It's right in between the two, so it's pretty close, but this one got pretty far off, so that's the 14 line. You have less fabric in the modern one than you do in the vintage. And also you can see through here, even though the seam allowances are the same, the modern one is 1/4 inch less than this one right here. But it did line up to the curve line for the 12 right through here. But the vintage is again slightly larger, even though they should have the same bust size. So this one has an extra 1/4 inch, so they shrank it just by 1/4 inch on the modern one, even though they use the same 5/8 seam allowance. And that is true all the way down. Then once you get down to the bottom here, I will say they did line up the curve through here at the top of the sleeve. However, as you go down, there's the vintage, and the modern one is the one that you can see right there. So the vintage one's going to flare out slightly more at the bottom. The angle on the underarm isn't so bad. It did get a little trimmed in for the size 12. And the vintage one is about 1/4 inch shorter until this notch right here. And then the rest of it is fine. So it's not objectively bad, but it's also just kind of kicked slightly. Some things are bigger in some places, some are bigger in others. Could that be a difference of the vintage pattern they found versus the vintage pattern I found? Very possible, but that's just good to know. On to the next piece. And again, just slight differences. When I line it up on the fold line, you can sort of see some of the same changes on the left front as we did on the right front. It's the same sleeve change where the vintage has more. The underarm is slightly a little askew. However, the bottom line actually does line up this go around. The vintage again gives you slightly more, just a 1/4 inch along the top of the sleeve. And let's just say the darts are close, but not quite. However, they did line up the top of the 12 this time around, and like I said, the fold line aligned basically perfectly this go around, so we do appreciate that. And now, on to the back, where we see, it's okay, it's not great. The sleeve again has the same extra. The curve on this one, you definitely have more on the vintage. The 1/4 inch is quite pronounced because I am lined up to the 12 here. The bottom notches actually don't even line up. So there's that. So you actually have more at your empire waist in the vintage than you do in the modern, which I find intriguing. The dart has also been moved. So the dart on the vintage one is closer set to the center of the back, and the modern one is probably about 1/4 inch farther away. In a backdrafted pattern, even with the undergarments that we have, that shouldn't really have needed to happen. The top of the sleeve does align nicely, and so does the center back end of the neck. What I do find interesting is the very sharp angle chosen on the back. It looks much more like almost a right angle than the vintage one, which is very curved. But that feels like I'm pulling at straws at this point, so let's dive in to the facings and then we'll go on to the skirt. And yes, hang on till the end and I will make mock-ups of both of these to see the differences. And when I laid them on top of one another, the bands were exactly the same. All right, skirt front for view 1, which is the flared skirt. It's not bad, but it's not great. I tried to find any line that looked like it matched on these two pieces. None of them matched. And I will remind you that the waist on the modern one was supposed to be a ½ inch bigger than on the vintage one. And even if you include the undergarment difference between now and the 50s, why is the vintage one, this hand, still bigger? Even though it's supposed to have a 26-inch waist. What did we do here? What was the choices that were made? Basically, there is nothing about this that exactly lines up. The curvature of the top is different in the vintage one. It goes up higher. The length of the skirt in the vintage one is a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch longer. None of the lines exactly line up. Basically, every dart that I'm looking at aligns with the 10, not the 12. And it's not like the modern one is making smaller darts so that there's more fabric to give you that ½ inch waist. The darts are the exact same size. They're just in different places. So what are we doing here, y'all? But first, we have to wrap up the pattern looking by looking at the skirt back of this to see if they did the exact same thing. Oh, fraptious joy. It's slightly better on this piece, but still not great. I'm not really sure what they were doing here. So the angle of the side of the dress is wider out, obviously to align with the slightly larger bust. Again, we say we have too much ease in our modern patterns, but like the vintage one still gives you more room to breathe because you're making it out of cotton. So unless they're accounting for negative ease, like you were making this out of a stretch material, even though nowhere does this pattern say to make it out of a stretch material from the vintage one. That's why you have the ease, so that you can breathe and you can move and you can do whatever you need to. The darts this is the 8/12 piece. They're just smack in the middle of either one of those, even though it should align with the 12 the whole way through. So they just put them wherever they wanted them. Again, they are the same size. For those of you that were always like, well, they had so many different undergarments and their, proportions were in different spots. And yet, even when reproducing it, they raised the waistline 1/4 inch. I don't know what they think they were accomplishing there. Because if you're just going to reproduce it, just reproduce it. Don't change it. Oh yeah, that's a thing. Oh yeah, and the vintage skirt is still a little bit longer. Well, I guess the only way to test all of these changes is to make a mock-up of this fine gal. Now for the mock-up, I originally did want to use the flared skirt. However, when I looked closer at the straight line skirt and the wild dart situation that was happening, I knew which one had to be the mock-up. So I opted for some very damaged 65/35 poly cotton from the Giant Estate sale. And after some serious wrangling, this nonsense right here, this is why I hate multi-size patterns. Just altogether flippin' confusing, and that is the cleanest one that I found. Both of them were finally done. But no, neither one of them fit on the mannequin. Thank you for asking. Ta-da! That's right, they're done. And I have some thoughts. This should shock no one. Overall, I will say the experience was relatively what I expected. Because when you just copy from vintage instructions onto modern paper and just go, you're going to have the same issues that you have when you make vintage patterns, which, to be fair to Simplicity, is what we have been asking them to do. But when the initial pattern has interesting pieces or slightly confusing pieces, maybe on that extra second sheet of instructions, we should have put little tips and tricks for the vintage so that people could refer to the second page, maybe on the back that was completely blank, so that they could help along. Because even when I was constructing these neck pieces, it was a challenge. I'm still not 100% sure that I did it 100% correct. However, they did do what we asked as far as copying the instructions, copying the pattern. But when they copied the pattern, here's the thing. There are two very key things that got changed that will affect the fit of your garment. One, when they changed the angle of that underarm to being more right angle as opposed to that really nice soft curve all the way around, that will affect your arm's ability to get in and out of it. And the bust is smaller on the modern one. Not by much, but by just enough that when you go to take this dress on and off, you could potentially get stuck in the dress with the side zip as per the vintage. How would they fix this, you may ask yourself? Great question, and the answer lies, that was a dangerous plan, in the back of the dress. Because both of these have full back center seams. All you have to do instead is close the side and open up this back and put in a 20, 22, 24-inch zip, whichever size works for you. And then, and only then, I will say that this dress pattern is close enough to the vintage that you can make it and get a vintage line. I know, Serena's going to be in the comments. She's going to be mad at me. I'm very clear on this. But you can do it. But you must change to a back zip if you are not going to mess with anything else of this modern reproduction. You have to put a back zip instead. Because this will not fit. You will get stuck. You will get stuck in this dress. And overall, I would say this is probably someone who definitely has been sewing for a while and would like to take the next step up. Because it was not super simple between all of the fisheye darts, all the extra darting along the bodice and the tucks, and the way they folded it over and tell you to attach it to the actual neckband. Not the easiest thing to do. So this is more of a moderate sewist accomplishment, not so much for a very beginner. And if you want to secure your privacy and be able to watch your favorite TV show whenever and from wherever you would like, make sure that you're clicking the link down in my description to sign up for Surfshark, because you will get an extra 4 months for free. And thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you for clicking on the sponsors so that these sponsors continue to come back and help support the videos that I create here. And these things kicked my butt, y'all. But I hope that you are sewing in chaos and that your project is not kicking your butt. We'll see you next time. Bye. It's fine. I didn't record any of that with audio, so we're gonna try this again. 'Cause I'm a professional. When she reaches over for the extra tripod, that's not a good sign. All I have to do is turn on Surfshark. Ned, will you please grab Marshmallow? Thank God I was recording audio for that one. Ugh.